If there was one physical subject, one material subject that we should focus on, in my opinion, it is very clear that the head of the snake is the financial system. The whole point of finance is to indebt, otherwise to enslave. What is a mortgage? I mean, what does that stand for? It's a death grip. So when you get a mortgage, you have a death grip held over you because you are in debt. You don't even own the house. The bank owns the house that loans you the money to buy the house, unless you're fortunate enough to have all the money to buy it outright. And even then, you can be taxed by the government, and if you fail to keep up with those taxes, the government can then take it from you. The whole system is based on a financial fraud, which effectively takes the power that we have and it gives it to a tiny group of individuals who are running the world through the control of finance. With the infinite supply of money that we have allowed them to take, they have literally an infinite supply of money, and with that money, and from their psychopathic point of view, they have bought everything and everyone who can be bought. So those of us who cannot be bought, because we operate on a level that goes way beyond the material, we are not rewarded for such behavior, we are punished for such behavior. And the most slovenly, disgustingly criminal, pedophilia, corrupt moral individuals, those are the ones that are rewarded in this system, which is upside down. We reward the pedophiles, we reward the corrupt, we reward the liars, we reward the people with no morals at all.
In the middle of the 19th century, Moses Hess formulated the first written principles of communism. In 1862, Hess, or the Communist Rabbi as he was called, wrote the book Rome and Jerusalem, in which he laid the foundations for a Jewish nationalist movement called Zionism. In the book, he called on the Jewish people to become separatists and to prepare for the creation of a future homogeneous Jewish ethno-state. Palestine would be occupied by the Jewish people, but the big problem was Palestine was at this time 90 to 95% Arab. Hess argued that the international Jewish bankers would help in this realization of stealing the land of the Palestinians. Hess suggested in his book that one last race and class struggle would be developed between the Aryans and the Semites. In this fight, Hess predicted that the Jews would stand as winners and the Aryans as losers. The Jews would stand superior over all other peoples. And because Jews had preserved their racial purity over the centuries, it would give them a leading role in the world. Hess essentially promoted eugenics and racial hygiene for the Jews and talked about a future Jewish ethno-state. He also referred to Christianity as the religion of death. Fascinatingly, he predicted a future war in Europe, with Germany, Italy, and Austria involved as a part of a race struggle. Moses Hess was also a close friend and collaborator of the two Jews, Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels, which he converted to communism and assisted them in their work with the Communist Manifesto in 1948. This proves that socialism, Marxism, communism, and Zionism in fact share the same roots. Although they travel different paths, they have the same common goal: domination of the world. Both work and plan for the day when the chosen race shall inherit the earth. Karl Marx, real name Moses Mordecai Levy, was descended from a long line of famous rabbis who were so-called Talmudic scholars. Marx's grandfather was a rabbi by the name of Mordecai. In fact, his grandparents were related to the Jewish Rothschild family. Through marriage, Rothschild would also partially fund Karl Marx, who would be remembered as the Jewish father of communism. Le Droit de Vivre, May 12, 1936, stated that Jewry is the mother of Marxism. The Communist Manifesto laid out the ideology of communism. Its key points include a central bank with monopoly on credit, abolition of countries and nationalities, abolition of the traditional family consisting of a man, a woman, and children, abolition of private property, which means no rights for the people, to make it impossible for people to earn a livelihood by introducing heavy taxation, confiscation of property, abolition of the right of inheritance, a communist state, a communist monopoly on credit and banking, the media in total control of the communists. Women should not focus on family and children anymore. In their own words, communism wants to do away with the status of women as mere instrument of production. Abolition of Christianity and morality. Marx refers to this totalitarian scheme as dictatorship of the proletariat, and his cult followers promote violence, class envy, hostility towards free markets, family, business, tradition, and Christianity. Today, they are instrumental in the destabilization of Europe. Marx also openly encouraged genocide against Slavs, referring to them as racial trash and that they must perish in a revolutionary Holocaust. In his 1920 article, Zionism versus Bolshevism, a struggle for the soul of the Jewish people, Winston Churchill stated his belief that international Jews were seeking a worldwide communist state under Jewish domination. The international Jews would use communism and Zionism to accomplish this. As a first step towards establishing Israel, Hezekiah Niles described in Niles' Weekly Register article that the Rothschilds had purchased Jerusalem in 1829.
Rothschild helped found Israel, and Rothschild has always been the backer of Israel. Whatever Rothschild wants, he gets. It is believed that he is the richest man in the world, and I have little doubt of that.
In 1897, the first Zionist Congress was held in Basel, Switzerland, and was chaired by Theodor Herzl. Jewish delegates from across Europe agreed that Palestine should be given to them. Prior to his death in 1904, Herzl predicted that a world body will one day give Palestine to the Jews, and that he will go down in history as the father of the Jewish state. For Herzl's dream to come true, European military powers would have to be manipulated and used into taking Palestine away from the Ottomans by force. In the German newspaper Deutsche Zeitung, Herzl wrote, "The wealthy Jews rule the world. The fate of the governments lies in their hands. They start wars between countries, and when they wish, the governments make peace. When the wealthy Jews sing, the nations and their leaders dance along. And meanwhile, the Jews get richer." Communism was devoted to abolish private property in order to concentrate all wealth and power in the hands of the global central banking cabal. Around 250 years ago, in 1760, Mayor Amschel Rothschild created the House of Rothschild that paved the way for international banking and control of the world's resources.
Money is power. Money is the only weapon that the Jew has to defend himself with.
Meyer Amschel Bauer, born in Frankfurt, Germany in 1744, was a moneylender and a goldsmith on Jew Street, whose shop had a sign out front with a red hexagram on it. Eventually, he would change his name to Rothschild, which is German for red sign. Rothschild soon learned that loaning money to governments and kings was more profitable than loaning money to private individuals. Not only were the loans bigger, but they were secured by the nation's taxes. Meyer Rothschild had 5 sons whom he trained in the skills of money creation and sent out to the major capitals of Europe to open branches of the family banking business.
You are 5 brothers. I want you each to start a banking business in a different country. One to go and open a house in Paris, one in Vienna, one in London. Choose the most important centers, so that when money is to be sent from here to London, let us say, you won't have to risk life and gold. Amshel, here in Frankfurt, will just send a letter to Nathan in London saying, pay so-and-so. And that will be offset by loans from London to Frankfurt. Understand? Yes. In your day, there will be many wars in Europe. And nations that have money to transport will come to the Rothschilds because it will be safe. Your 5 banking houses may cover Europe, but you will be one firm, one family. The Rothschilds, who work always together. That will be your power.
Just how rich and powerful is Lord Evelyn Rothschild? Historically, the Rothschild family wealth was hidden in underground vaults. The Rothschilds' secret financial records were never audited and never accounted for. Their family commissioned biographies give the illusion that their family fortune has dwindled, but researchers estimate their wealth at close to $500 trillion, more than half the wealth of the entire world. Besides their many castles, palace mansions, wineries, racehorses, and exotic resorts, the Rothschilds bought Reuters in the 1800s. Reuters then bought the Associated Press, which selects and delivers the same news stories to the entire world, day after day. They have controlling interest in 3 major television networks and easily avoid media attention since they own it. Until recently, they owned and operated England's Royal Mint and continue to be the gold agent for the Bank of England, which they also direct. They control the LBMA, London Bullion Market Association, where 30 to 42 million ounces of gold worth over $11 billion are traded daily. The Rothschilds earn millions weekly just on transaction fees alone. They also fix the world price of gold on a daily basis and profit from its ups and downs. Over the centuries, the Rothschilds have amassed trillions of dollars worth of gold bullion in their subterranean vaults and have cornered the world's gold supply. They own controlling interest in the world's largest oil company, Royal Dutch Shell. They operate phony charities and offshore banking services where the wealth of the black nobility and the Vatican is hidden in secret accounts at Rothschild Swiss banks, trusts, and holding companies. Although Evelyn Rothschild looks like a harmless gray-haired old man, make no mistake about it, Rothschild and his ancestors have handpicked presidents, crashed stock markets, bankrupted nations, orchestrated wars, and sponsored the mass murder and impoverishment of millions. The wealth hoarded by this one family alone could feed, clothe, and shelter every human being on earth.
The Rothschilds is the head of the snake. Within the city of London, there is a 1-mile square that is referred to as the City. This is the headquarters of the Jewish family Rothschild's banking dynasty that owns the money supply through the central banks of almost every nation on earth. In November 1910, 7 of the world's richest Jewish men held a secret meeting on Jekyll Island just off the coast of Georgia to establish a central bank, which they called the Federal Reserve Bank. These men were Nelson Aldrich and Frank Vanderlip, both representing the Rockefeller financial empire, Henry Davidson, Charles Norton, and Benjamin Strong, representing J.P. Morgan, and Paul Warburg, representing the Rothschild banking dynasty of Europe. There were some powerful men who made it abundantly clear that they were not in favor of the Federal Reserve System. Their total wealth today would be worth nearly $11 billion. These were Benjamin Guggenheim, Isidor Straus, and Jacob Astor. Unfortunately, all of them were on board Titanic when it sank to the depths of the sea. All 3 died that night. By April 1912, all opposition to the Federal Reserve had been eliminated. On December 23, 1913, after many senators and congressmen had left town for Christmas, the President Wilson signed a bill, and the privately owned Federal Reserve System came into being in the United States. After Woodrow Wilson had signed the Federal Reserve Act, which gave private interests control over economic power in 1913, he said, "I am a most unhappy man. I've unwittingly ruined my country. A great industrial nation is now controlled by its system of credit. Our system of credit is concentrated. The growth of the nation, therefore, and all our activities are in the hands of a few men. We have come to be one of the worst ruled, one of the most completely controlled and dominated governments in the civilized world. No longer a government by free opinion, no longer a government by conviction and the vote of the majority, but a government by the opinion and endures of a small group of dominant men." Jewish bankers and their rabbis actually celebrated the passage of the Federal Reserve Act in 1913. After the Federal Reserve was up and running, Charles August Lindbergh added, "The financial system has been turned over to the Federal Reserve Board. The system is private, conducted for the sole purpose of obtaining the greatest possible profits for the use of other people's money." The Federal Reserve System was neither federal, nor does it contain reserves, and nor is it a part of a decentralized system. The adoption of the debt-based financial system preached by Marx in the Communist Manifesto had been accomplished. The current banking system, fractional reserve banking, enables privately owned banks to create money out of thin air. Money today is simply numbers in a computer system, with only about 3% existing as physical currency. Through its control and monopoly of our money, the elite that own the Federal Reserve now have total control over other banks, corporations, money, and politicians. The Fed system is designed to enslave us to never-ending debt and to fool us to believe that our money has any real value, when it is in fact worthless, created out of thin air, based on debt, and backed by nothing. It must enslave humanity to protect its monopoly over credit. Its money-creating tricks enabled Big Brother government to borrow endless money from the Fed. The Fed were now controlled by the Jews Rothschild, Warburg, and Schiff. Every Federal Reserve chairman since 1980 has been Jewish: Burns, Volcker, Greenspan, Bernanke, and Yellen. The House of Rothschild owns 57% of the stock of the privately held Federal Reserve Bank.
What is the proper relationship, what should be the proper relationship between a chairman of the Fed and a president of the United States?
Well, first of all, the Federal Reserve is an independent agency, and that means basically that there is no other agency of government which can overrule actions that we take.
The Jew Harold Wallace Rosenthal explained, "Our power has been created through the manipulation of the national monetary system. The Federal Reserve System fitted our plan nicely since it is owned by us, but the name implies that it's a government institution. From the very outset, our purpose was to confiscate all the gold and silver, replacing them with worthless, non-redeemable paper notes. We, Jews, have put issue upon issue to the American people. Then we promote both sides of the issue as confusion reigns. With their eyes fixed on the issue, they fail to see who is behind every scene. We Jews glory in the fact that the stupid Goy have never realized that we are the parasites, consuming an increasing portion of production, while the producers are continually receiving less and less. We have to understand that one of the most powerful tools the globalists have for profit and control is war. The most lucrative thing that can happen for the international bankers and the globalists is war, for it forces the country to borrow even more money from the Federal Reserve Bank at interest. Wall Street had successfully been occupied. The next goal for the elite was to finish off Christian Russia and from there launch an invasion of the rest of Europe. According to the State Department's documents, a group of Jews including Jacob Schiff, Felix Warburg, Otto Kahn, Mortimer Schiff, Isaac Seligman already planned the overthrow of the Russian Tsar in 1916. They decided that Russia should be destroyed and a communist slave regime would be implemented. The fact that we will never learn in school is that communism actually was a Jewish totalitarian ideology invented by Jews, funded by Jewish bankers, and economically manifested by Jewish Bolsheviks as Vladimir Lenin, Trotsky, Kaganovich, Yagoda. The family of Tsar Nicholas II, his wife Alexandra, his daughters Olga, Tatiana, Maria, Anastasia, and his son and successor Alexei were devout Orthodox Christians. They exemplified everything that was precious in a traditional family. As a boy, Tsar Nicholas II had witnessed the assassination of the Tsar Alexander II by the Jewish terrorist Vera Figner, leader of a terrorist group called the People's Will. Tensions between the Jews and the Christian Russians started. Nicholas' great tragic mistake was in failing to execute the communists before it was too late after a failed 1905 revolution. Now, his kindness would return to haunt him and his family. The Bolsheviks forced the Tsar to abdicate. The Jew Alexander Kerensky was given $1 million from the Jewish Wall Street banker Jacob Schiff to immediately free all political prisoners and lift the ban on political exiles to permit them to return to Russia. Revolutionaries quickly flooded into any and all public offices. Anarchy began as criminals plundered houses and people were murdered and robbed. Jacob Schiff was chairman of the Kula Bank and an assistant of the Jewish Rothschilds. He took care of the contacts between the revolutionary movement in Russia and the Jewish Masonic order B'nai B'rith. On March 27, 1917, the Jews Jacob Schiff and Max Warburg sent Lev Davido Bronstein, better known as Trotsky, and his group of Jewish communists off to Russia to lead a Jewish revolution with no less than $20 million in gold, today worth billions. Some 90,000 exiles, mostly Jews and Freemasons, returned from all over the world to infiltrate Russia. Most of them changed their Jewish names to blend into the European society better. Another banker who financed the revolution was the Swedish Jew Olof Aschberg of the Nya Bank in Stockholm. Olof's grandson, Robert Aschberg, is a former member of the Swedish Communist Party and today leader of the Zionist anti-white organization called Expo in Sweden. Trotsky recruited Russian Jews from the immigrant population of the Lower East Side of Manhattan and trained them as armed revolutionaries. Lenin, Marlow, Radek, and Kamenev returned from Switzerland. Stalin, Sverdlov, and Simonyev returned from Siberia. The Jewish chairman of the Central Executive Committee, Jacob Sverdlov, sent a message to the Jew Jacob Jurovsky, head of the local Cheka, where he communicated that he had received orders from Jacob Schiff to eliminate the Tsar and his entire family. Sverdlov ordered Jurovsky to carry out this order. In the spring of 1918, the Tsar and his family were taken to Ekaterinburg in the Urals, where Jacob Jurovsky was given the mission to imprison, plan, and assassinate the imperial family. Jurovsky brought the Tsar Nicholas and his family to a house that previously had belonged to a wealthy Jewish merchant named Ipatiev. Nicholas' imperial family was abruptly woken in the middle of the night on July 17, 1918, when the Jurovsky told the imperial family to dress and then brought them to the basement. They were told that they were going to pose for a group photograph, but the Jewish assassins, Jurovsky, Nikolin, Yermakov, and Vaganov, had other plans in mind. Seconds later, Juravsky then pulled out his revolver and aimed it straight at the Tsar's head and fired. Nicholas died instantly. Next, he shot Tsarina Alexandra as she made the sign of the cross. Olga, Tatiana, Maria, and Anastasia were shot next. The daughters were stabbed to death after the initial gunfire had failed to kill them. Their doctor and 3 servants were also murdered in cold blood. Items that were related to the imperial family were burned and destroyed. Nothing was saved of the family. Even their dogs were slaughtered. News of the brutal murder of the Romanovs would send shockwaves throughout Russia and all of Europe. To some Jews, though, the slaughter of the Romanov family was treasured as a Jewish ritual murder. In selected Jewish-owned shops, they sold greeting cards with images that were unavailable for Gentiles. The postcards carried the image of the Tzaddik. This is an image of a rabbinical Jew with the Torah in his hand and a white foal in the other. The head of the depicted foal is clearly shown to be the Imperial Russian Tsar Nicholas II. Below this image is the inscription in Hebrew: "This is a sacrificial animal, so is my cleansing. It will be my replacement in cleansing the victim." A bloody civil war between the Red Jews, led by Trotsky, and the White Christians, led by Admiral Kolchak, broke out before the Jews could grab full power of the Soviet powerhouse to set up their own Bolshevik totalitarian system. David R. Francis, U.S. ambassador to Russia, said in January 1918, "The Bolshevik leaders here in Russia, most of whom are Jews and 90% of whom are returned exiles, care little for Russia or any other country, but are internationalists, and they're trying to start a worldwide social revolution." The Jewish role in the Communist Revolution was mentioned in many major Jewish publications, such as the Jewish Encyclopedia and the Universal Jewish Encyclopedia and the Encyclopaedia Judaica. In fact, they are boasting about the essential role of the Jews in the Russian Revolution. The Jewish Chronicle said, "There is much in the fact of Bolshevism itself, in the fact that so many Jews are Bolshevists, in the fact that the ideals of Bolshevism at many points are consonant with the finest ideals of Judaism." Of the 22 ministers in the first Soviet government, 17 were Jews. The few who were not themselves Jewish often were Freemasons, had Jewish wives, and spoke Yiddish. We can't know for sure if Stalin was Jewish, but at least he spoke Yiddish and had 3 Jewish wives. Some historians claim that Stalin was Georgian, and some say that he was a Georgian Jew. Los Angeles B'nai B'rith Messenger, for example, stated that Stalin was a Jew. Stalin's real name was Losif Vissarionovich Djugashvili. The Jewish writer Moritz Steinschneider invented the term anti-Semitic in 1860. The term would be used to silence all those that dared to expose Jewish crimes. Because of the predominantly Jewish character of the regime, the very first piece of legislation approved by the communist regime was the Anti-Semitism Act in 1917. Anti-Semitism was made a capital crime. An anti-communist was regarded as an anti-Semite. Leon Trotsky also started using the word racist to browbeat all dissenters of the communist ideology and to render debate impossible. These words are used still to this day to bully any politically incorrect person into silence. Even more now than ever, they're trying to make it punishable to question or criticize their actions by calling it hate speech, fake news, or anti-Semitic.
Anti-Semitism is used as a great blockade. When somebody's called an anti-Semite, it's usually because they've asked some question or made some comment about Jewish behavior in some way, shape, or form. And because Jews don't want to discuss that behavior, they call you an anti-Semite for daring to question that Jews do anything bad ever. That's really why it is used. Anytime you say something about Jews, Zionists, Israel, anything with a tangent to Jews that is in a negative light, you're going to be called an